It's my honor to introduce Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva.
Thank you. Good morning, all. And first, I want to address something that it seems silly, but somehow is some people on social media are wondering about my hat. Call me a cowboy if it's like some kind of statement. Well, the simple reason I wear the hat is to stay alive. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor of the worst kind, melanoma, and I just had a surgery to remove a part of my face, and I want to keep the rest of my face. So the hat stays on, so if someone doesn't like it, well, too bad. With that said, why are we here today? We've been inundated with calls, with concerns, with images from the news, from people picking up the phone, from emailing, sending us letters about what's going on in Venice. And that is a microcosm of what's going on throughout the entire county of Los Angeles. So we're putting some information together for you to kind of explain how we got to where we're at, the scope of the problem, what's currently happening that's not working, and how we can move forward to make things better for everyone. So with that, whoop, that was the quickest slide in history.
Beachfront homeless encampments. It's a trend.
Can we back up one? There we go. This scenario plays out all too often throughout LA County. I don't know where that is, but I guarantee you I can walk anywhere in LA County within 5 miles, I will find something like this somewhere. In some places, I'll find this block after block, encampment after encampment. If I go down to Venice, I find it on the Strand. And it is a national disgrace, particularly when we're the wealthiest nation on the planet, that we have such an enormous problem with homelessness. And it's a local tragedy because we are now the receiving point, the destination for homeless throughout the entire nation. They're coming here to LA County, and in particular to tourist destinations, Venice, Hollywood, for example, right here, Olvera Street, the corridor, and all places in between. So it is a national disgrace and a national problem, but we're bearing the brunt of it, but we're yet to see solutions that are working. Okay, let's move on.
Beachfront homeless encampments. It's a trend you've probably seen more of during the pandemic, even though it's illegal. A boardwalk which was once famous around the Beachfront homeless encampments. It's a trend you've probably seen more of during the pandemic, even though it's illegal.
A boardwalk which was once famous around the world is now more infamous for the more than 200 homeless encampments that dot the sidewalk.
Residents are fed up, and it's not hard to tell why.
The deterioration of Venice Beach continues with this shocking incident. Eyewitness News obtaining this video of a homeless man being shot last week on the Venice boardwalk.
They've been lighting things on fire for the last 6 months. I mean, it's full mayhem down here. Zombies yelling, screaming. It's something that people got to deal with by walking through the streets pretty much every day.
A home was destroyed and a dog is dead after a fire in Venice. Well, now neighbors are wondering if a nearby homeless encampment is to blame.
Her dog died. She lost her home and she lost everything. When is it going to be enough?
Fires, fights, stabbings, shootings. It's the vicious cycle of violence people in Venice have to deal with day in and day out. Will anyone put a stop to it?
But this is the border right here. I guess it'd be right there, right, with the welcome, the blue welcome sign. So basically right here at this yellow sign of this intersection would be the dividing line.
This is what's called regulating public space. This is what's called unregulated public space.
Yeah.
So this is exactly why we have the problem, because if people are unwilling to regulate, they surrender it to whoever shows up from wherever for whatever reason, and this is what you get. Unreal. Hi, nice to meet you. Alex Villanueva, Sheriff.
Yeah, I've been here for 28 years. It's really bad.
When did it go sour, would you think? If you were to point a year.
I mean, before COVID it was still bad, but not like this.
Not like this. Man, we're dying here. We're working every day and losing money. And it's because of the ambiance. It's because how ugly it is. People come to Venice Beach It's world famous for its beauty. And you've turned it into a trash pile. It looks like something you'd see underneath the freeway overpass. You know, if I had a child and a wife and I came down here and saw this and the insanity of the people living in the tents and the yelling and the fighting, I'd say, honey, let's go back to the hotel and go to Disneyland or Universal. This is dangerous. It's been the worst thing that's ever happened. I can't imagine the city officials allowing this to happen in the first place and then for it to go on this long.
We're trying to figure out what can be done to help you down here and how, like, what happened, like how did it change? Has anyone offered you guys services?
Find someone who looks like they're actually struggling to talk to them. I chose this life. There's not much I can do to tell you to help.
But that's okay. So no, but that matters too, right? So you remind me, how old are you? 22. How close?
Dead on.
See?
23 in 2 months.
And you're like, I'd rather be here than anywhere else, right? Freedom.
I'd rather be. See, me personally, I'm a drifter. I live on the road constantly. I just moved out here from Nashville.
Why the hell did you leave Nashville? Let's start with that. Right? Come on, man. I gotta stop my guys from going to Nashville because we got work to do. Are you in the same position? So I guess so. If we came down here and said, "Hey, this ain't right. You're out of here. You're packing up and leaving," right?
I wouldn't leave. I'd be hurt that I wouldn't be on the beach because the beach is always called to me. But there's a whole city to explore.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about being a drifter is you're always on your feet. You're always exploring. So.
How many people down here you think are in your category?
Good bit of them, actually. I mean, even a lot of the older generation, they've done what I'm doing most of their life. You know, they've done this since they were kids. It's more than just living on the streets. It's a lifestyle. You know, it's nomadic. It's going back to our roots. As we should all really look at it.
You're going caveman style.
Right.
That's what I call it.
Being primitive is this first principle to learning how to innovate. There's nothing left to invent. It's all been done. It's all been said. But how can we make it better is the next question.
Y'all might laugh, like, when they see, like, homeless people or something, the first thing they think is, that's so disgusting. Like,
or I bet you it's because of drugs. I bet you it's because he's a drug.
My daddy bought Target, all the Targets in the city. Like, so I'm rich. I got a big mansion, and you live in a tent. Like, that's so disgusting. I'm not touching you, but it's like you don't understand. Like, what you don't know the struggle. Like, you don't know what led this person down here.
Yeah.
To like get to know the person before you judge somebody.
So what do you think of people like us in law enforcement that take the time to listen? And you got the elected sheriff of Los Angeles County standing 5 feet from you.
It shocks me. I'm not even gonna lie. It shocks the out of me.
Our challenge is we have to care about your plight, but we also got to care about the plight that live here, that make a business here. So how do we make it all work?
If someone could lift you up, what would that take? What would you be willing to go? You know what? If you could do this,
showing you have a heart.
My job is to let local law enforcement, local city government handle their problem. If they're not doing it, well, then I got to step in. At some point, I got to decide it's not working. We need more help. So I'm here to provide that more help.
I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for that.
Because you are here. At least you are here.
That's the first step.
All right? And that's the first step.
All right, good. So I'm going to look forward to seeing you next time I come back.
Again. Yes, you will be able to see
All right. All right, sound good. We got a deal?
We got a deal.
And just one tiny sample of the big problem. What's the #1 failure of local government at the county and the city level? Why every measure fails and we see the problem getting bigger and bigger every year? Because the city and the county have decided that they will not regulate public space. When you don't regulate public space, it will be occupied by somebody from somewhere, period. And if you look at Measure H, Triple H, and all these different things, they all say we're not going to get law enforcement to be involved because we're just going to handle it on our own. They're scary. They have guns. You've heard all the drills. So who actually regulates public space? Well, right now, the homeless do. They decide. And public space belongs to everybody. And the homeless need help. We have to be compassionate. We have to provide for the needs. But one thing for sure is that LA County, our resources are limited. They're not infinite. It's a finite source, and every single person that comes from out of state to LA County, to the boardwalk, is taking away the resources, the very few resources we have to handle our own homeless. They're organically created by whatever their circumstances are and their fates that wind up homeless here in LA County. We cannot keep up with them, let alone because of the deluge that comes from out of state. And this is something that we'll keep talking about, but that is very, very important. Okay, let's move on. Now, these are the architects of failure right here. I think you know who this gentleman is. I think you know who all these people are. I think you know who all these people are. Because not only are they in charge of the city government and county government, they're also in charge LA Homeless Service Authority. They're also on the board of directors of Metro. And they're the ones who decided that we don't want to have law enforcement be involved. Well, based on what we've seen so far, they're doing a whiz-bang job all on their own by not letting law enforcement be involved. Well, there is a place for us. We are literally the backbone of a civil society, is law enforcement. We're the ones that get to stop nonsense, stop violence, halt people in their tracks when they're harming other people, keep people out of harm's way, and people that don't go on timeout, be it jail or whatever cases, we're the only ones that do that. No one else does. So when you see crime rates spiking out of control, and you see all those images that play every single day and the trauma that residents have to live with, and among the homeless population themselves, imagine having a homeless person say, "There's not enough cops here." What an epiphany. It came from the homeless person. That should tell you something. Now, we got to do an honorable mention to these people, all those 501c3 organizations. And we're going to talk about money. There is a homeless industrial complex, and they're raking in money, not by the millions, not by the hundreds of millions, by the billions. And what actually gets out to actual service provided by individuals is just not there. So let's move on. Now we're going to have a quick detour here. We're going to talk about geography and about authority. This is the County of Los Angeles. There's a saying in our department that the bear goes everywhere, or hashtag the bear goes everywhere. This is the entire county. Let's go to the next one. This is the 3rd district, Sheila Kuehl's district. Let's go one more slide. And that is the district belongs to Mike Bonin, and where Venice is located. And if you notice, on all 3, it's still within the jurisdiction of the LA County Sheriff's Department. Okay, now let's go to authorities. People may not be aware of this because I know this came around people, in fact, people in the news and people in actually elected officials. What is the sheriff doing in Venice? Well, Government Code Section 26600, it lays it out right here. The sheriff shall preserve peace. It doesn't say preserve peace only in the places you provide basic law enforcement services to. It's the entire county of Los Angeles. It's my responsibility. I don't take it lightly. The assumption is that every single subdivision of LA County has a police force and they're doing their job. Or better yet, they're permitted to do their job by the political oversight. In this case, we have an absolute failure of political oversight who has handcuffed the LAPD, was more than capable to get the job done and regulate public space. Okay? So let's go on to 26601. The sheriff shall arrest and take before the nearest magistrate for examination all persons who attempt to commit or have committed a public offense. Notice again, it doesn't say only in the places that you provide law enforcement services to. It's the entire county of Los Angeles. Let's go to the 3rd one. This is my favorite, the 3rd one. The sheriff shall prevent and suppress any affrays, breaches of the peace, riots, and insurrections. Okay? And also, they may execute all orders of the local health officer for the purpose of preventing the spread of any contagious or communicable disease. Who would have thought in LA County we'd be looking at cholera, typhus, dysentery, bubonic plague, 3rd world diseases at our doorstep because we failed to regulate public space. It has now reached a critical point that is jeopardizing the life and safety of all LA County residents in one form or another. If it's not people that are directly impacted, the homeless, we lose on average 5 homeless a day in LA County. That's just shy of 2,000 a year. And there's going to be an activist going to be yelling, "Oh my God, you are inhumane." while the coroner is busy scraping off the bodies off the sidewalk. How humane is that? Prop 47, authored by George Gascon, I may note, decriminalized possession of narcotics, which used to be felonies, became misdemeanors. And now people that are consuming narcotics all day long, all night long, they're in a downward spiral. The only thing that stops that downward spiral is a coroner when they're dead. That's why the numbers are creeping up. Not they're creeping up, they're skyrocketing upwards. Back prior to Prop 47, we'd arrest people for drug offense. And that's not criminalizing the poor. That's actually saving them, because we clean them up, give them 3 squares, medical care, and they actually get, instead of being strung out, they actually get off whatever they're on. We provide them the proper medical care, and they fight their case. They end up in a halfway house or a treatment facility as a means of avoiding that felony conviction on their record. Now those same treatment facilities are running half empty because they cannot convince anybody to take the treatment. They don't have to. All they have to do is sit on the sand like that gentleman there and smoke dope all day long. So you tell me, how humane is that condition? And that is just utter nonsense of what's going on right now. Do I want to be in Venice? Of course not. Do I have to be there? Yes. Because the system, the way it's set up, and the architects of this failed plan are forcing us to take in a different approach, go in a new direction. All right, let's move it on. 2011, 10 years ago, homeless count, 39,000. This is our conservative estimate today. We're at 80,000. That's a 2-fold increase in homelessness in 10 years. As this thing was marching upward, all those geniuses you saw in my architect slide, at what point do you think they said, we have a problem here, let's rethink our approach? No, they doubled down. They kept telling you we need more affordable housing, we need to construct housing, permanent housing. Hint, memo to all these individuals. I'll call them geniuses for lack of a better term. You cannot build your way out of homelessness. I think it was LA Homeless Authority themselves said, for every 100 that we house, they're replaced by 120 on the street. That math seemed to elude these people that are responsible, our elected officials. Until you change that math, you will never get your arms around the size of the problem. You got to change the math. There's only one way to change the math. Again, you have to regulate public space. Right now, we're doing 2 really bad things by failing to regulate public space. One is we're enabling dependency. All those 501c3s, very well intentioned, I'm pretty sure you can ask them all. They're out there on the Strand, they're on Skid Row, they're feeding the unhoused. And the more you feed the unhoused, more unhoused come. And they keep coming. And you have to match, but then you found out from the unhoused, the homeless, I don't want to accept regulations, I don't want to go indoors, I want to prefer to live al fresco, because that's my God-given right. And then they'll enable that by throwing them clothes, medicine, food all day long. So they don't have to do anything. And then our architects, the geniuses, double down and say, well, we can't make them go anywhere. So this is why we have the problem that we have. All right, let's move again. Now let's talk about money. Yeah, this is county and city spending on homeless. Bear in mind, this is just direct spending earmarked exclusively for homeless. If I were to count everything that goes from Department of Social Services, let's go to Department of Mental Health, Health Service, all the other ones, these numbers would be far, far larger. I'm just talking what's earmarked exclusively for homeless programs. Look at these numbers. We're approaching $1 billion a year. In fact, we're way past $1 billion a year this year because this is just half of 1 year. So the true number is way up here. As the problem grows like clockwork year after year. So you tell me, You think it's time to regulate public space? Yeah, we need to do that. Can LAPD do that? Yes, they can. We want to encourage them. We want to work with them. We want to work collaboratively with everyone to regulate public space. Okay, now go on to the next one. We also visit Olvera Street. Let's run this one. The homeless come here, they harass customers. The homeless come here, they harass customers. They harass them. Sometimes they've been beaten. When people go to use a restroom, there's someone slamming, using it. So parents are very hesitant to come here, with their kids. So it used to be a very pro-family place, and now it's very hostile to families. So this chased away a lot of repeat clients that come here. They're afraid of this place, and a lot of the drivers of that is the homeless.
Quisiera agregar algo un poco más. En ocasiones ha habido casos que aquí han tocado hasta niños, los mismos homeless. Las familias andan aquí caminando y ellos andan desnudos, tanto como hombres como mujeres. Y es algo que nos afecta pues bastante a nosotros.
They're talking about some of the homeless are molested. Kids that come here with their parents, and there's naked men and women come by in just different states of disrobing that upsets obviously parents with minor children, and that is really driving a very anti-business climate here. ¿Y estaban muchas de estas cerradas?
Sí, estas están cerradas. Los que mira cerradas ahorita son los que están cerradas prácticamente siempre.
¿Siempre?
Sí.
¿Ni siquiera en el fin de semana?
No, ni fin de semana. Los que están ahorita abiertos son los que abren prácticamente toda la semana y el fin de semana.
¿Y los desamparados que no tienen casa?
Pues, los desamparados que no tienen casa, los que están a los alrededores,
sí.
Ya con ellos también pues batallan mucho porque pues algunos a veces entran a dar problemas. Y entonces a veces, bueno, el otro día a mi patrona le robaron una caja de mercancía, entonces es bastante problema.
Wow.
Y ahorita hay muy poco security, entonces también eso está afectando mucho.
Bueno, pues les deseamos la mejor suerte. Vamos a tratar de ayudar en el problema con más seguridad y menos de los desamparados para que vengan más turistas.
Para que vengan más turistas.
¿Ok?
Estaría muy bien. Muchísimas gracias.
Ok, a la señora. ¿Quién hizo eso? ¿Quién hizo eso?
De los indigentes, una
¿Los
mujer,
indigentes?
sí, robando, al quererle quitar, se volteó y me golpeó y me dejó acá en esta parte de aquí.
¿Y usted lo reportó a la policía?
No, fue un día que había seguridad aquí también,
¿Sí?
La sacaron, pero después volvió a regresar. Ellos se quedaron con ella, pero no hace nada.
Ok, pues vamos a tratar de mejorar la situación para que esto no le pase a usted otra vez, ¿ok?
Muchas gracias.
Ok, cuídese mucho,
Buen día,
señora.
gracias.
Okay.
Hasta luego.
Have a good day. They depend almost exclusively on the tourism industry because the locals don't come here. They'll come here to eat. That's about it.
Right.
But all the merchandise, everything here for sale is the tourism industry that drives their sales here. So a dip in the tourism, they all feel it in their pockets.
It's like Rose Bowl, Super Bowl, all those things. This place would be a big deal.
Be crammed with people because all the people will have their big ticket item, and then this will be one of the things to do.
Right, go to Olvera Street.
Go to Olvera Street.
Yeah.
All right. ¿Cómo está, señora?
Muy bien.
¿Necesitas más turistas?
Sí, claro.
A ver si te encontramos más.
Tráigalo.
Okay. Chamber of Commerce says there are about 340 businesses in Venice. They employ 10,000. And Venice is the #2 destination here in LA County, or actually in Southern California. #1 is Disneyland. Right now, there are tourism companies in foreign lands marking off LA as a place not to go. There's no more powerful image than people assaulting each other in broad daylight on the Strand. Oh yeah, let's go there to visit. For LA County as a whole, tourism industry, we bring in 50 million visitors a year as a destination. Contributes $18 billion a year to our local economy, which is about probably 30% of our gross domestic product, GDP for LA County, comes from tourism and all the associated industries. That is a huge, huge chunk of change. So many livelihoods depend on tourism. Yet, you look at the city council agendas, you look at yesterday's board of supervisors agendas, do you see anything about that anywhere? They don't even mention it. And I'm looking at going, oh Lord Jesus, what are we going to do? This is a crisis. We need to take it seriously. These are existential threats to the lives and livelihoods of LA County residents, and all I get from our architects is indifference. Because it's not part of their agenda. It's not part of their woke rationale that we need to leave law enforcement out of the homeless problem. And people are perishing, jobs are being lost, families are being destroyed. Right now there's a USC poll. 10% of LA County residents want to leave. 40% increase just from last year. Again, do you hear anything from the Board of Supervisors, City Council, or the Mayor about that? Why people want to leave? No, it's not even a topic. But when it comes to handcuffing or defunding the law enforcement, everyone is jumping up and rush to the microphone. Oh yeah, I got a proposal to do this or do that. And when it comes to actually, can we solve the problem? Nothing. Okay, some of those 501c3s are taking all the money. Here you go. St. Joseph Center, Venice Family Clinic. Keep going. Board of Directors of Venice Family Clinic. Doing pretty well for a nonprofit. Okay? And I put Supervisor Kuehl and Councilman Bond in there because it's their district. Okay, let's go. Let's move on. Other 501c3s that are popping up. People assisting the homeless. Clear Matrix, 501c3. One more. And Share Your Share in Safe Place for Youth. No information whatsoever on their finances. And I guarantee you, the more money that gets thrown at the homelessness, more of these mystery fly-by-night operations are going to start appearing, where we have no idea who they are, what they are, where the money goes. Remember all those claims about transparency and accountability that applies to the Sheriff's Department? Well, I think the rest of county government and city government needs to be transparent, needs to be fully accountable with the billions of dollars that are being wasted. Very little gets to the actual source of the problem. $6.5 billion in 10 years. Where did the money go? What do we get out of it? Yes, billion. That's what, 9 zeros, I think? We're doing the math right? All right, let's move on. Okay, now, there's good news. We identified the problem, we identified our current state of affairs, and now let's talk solutions. And I want to introduce Lieutenant Jeff Diedrich. He's a lieutenant in charge of our homeless outreach service team and hands down the subject matter expert on homelessness, probably in the nation. And he's doing an admirable job, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeff. It's all you. Oh, you get to use the stick too if you need it.
If I need that, we're in trouble. Good morning. So I'm Lieutenant Jeff Diedrich, and I oversee the Sheriff's Department's Homeless Outreach Services team, which you'll hear the name HOST. That's the acronym. HOST was one of the first of its kind models of the co-response model, where you have an embedded civilian outreach team that work hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder with law enforcement. And with our team, it's a team of 8 dedicated people from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, which we believe are some of the most dedicated, compassionate, and committed outreach professionals in the business, and we're proud to have them as a member of our team. Our team, the genesis was back with the homeless initiative of the actual HOST team, but its origins go back to the El Nino times, where we were tasked with ensuring that no one experiencing homelessness in the riverbeds were succumbed to the floodwaters, and we were able to accomplish that with many lessons learned. There were successes and failures and trials and tribulations, but what it did is it taught us, and it taught us that law enforcement does have a role in a humanitarian mission, which was at that time life-saving. And so the team was created, and then through the Homeless Initiative, we're a proud member of the E6 outreach component, where we serve daily with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority outreach workers from the Department of Mental Health, Department of Health Services, and many other collaborative partners throughout the county. So that was one of the first things that I found when we went to Venice, is no one had seen a team like ours. And I thought that was odd because Santa Monica PD has a pretty good team themselves. But we are a dedicated outreach team that does not go separate from civilians. We do go hand in hand, and I'll get to why that's important in a second. But through that E6 collaborations, that was transformational. Through the E6 and our treasured partners with the Homeless Initiative, law enforcement was brought to a table they were never brought to before. And it worked. And so throughout the county, the host team is called upon by all kinds of stakeholders and community members to assist in this exploding homeless crisis. And so in doing so, what we rely upon is what's called the Los Angeles County Homeless Encampment Protocol. And that protocol is a 5-step process. And it begins with identification. And number 2 is assessment. And the assessment, in our view, others don't do it properly because it's someone just asking brief questions. And you kind of get some information, but our assessment is extremely thorough and in-depth. It is a significant conversation with each person that we encounter on the boardwalk or wherever that might be. And maybe that conversation doesn't happen the first time. They might say, no, I don't want to talk to you. And that's fine, we walk away. Second time, it might be a little bit of information. And then third time, it's even more. But the persistence of host, with our compassionate outreach, we do get to those conversations, which I'll conclude at the end with my time, what we found in Venice. But one of the things, too, is each deputy on the host team was handpicked. And the sheriff was very clear about that. Make sure you have the right people. And we have picked them. I treasure the deputies that are on this team because they work tirelessly in the face of something that many say they shouldn't even be involved with, but they see successes on a day-to-day level. And so I'm very proud of those deputies on that team. And then what we had to do was give them the best training in the world that we could. So each deputy on our team goes through the crisis intervention training, which is state-of-the-art on the Sheriff's Department. And one of the techniques is ROAR. And ROAR is a roadmap to that crisis stabilization and scene management. And it's impressive for those that haven't been through that class. I highly recommend it because what it does is it empowers deputies to have these kind of interactions and successes and failures and still go through with confidence. When we were directed to go down to Venice, we started our assessment. And our assessment's been very complex, but then it's been very simple also. It's been human conversations, and what we've learned today is that there are many people there who are vulnerable, and those people are actually crying out for our help. We talk often about trauma-informed care and that people might be adverse to law enforcement contact, and I agree with that, and we see that all the time. But there's also another side to this. Trauma-informed care also means that some people who are victimized, they seek out someone who can provide safety. And so the host team, it really exemplifies Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a sense that a person can have food, shelter, and warmth to survive. The next step in that hierarchy of needs is safety, security, and warmth. And if you don't have that, nothing else occurs. So you are merely surviving. And that's what's happening at Venice Beach because no one is thriving. No one is getting better. The sheriff's host team provides that level of safety and security for those next conversations to occur. And for those persons that are vulnerable to have that safety and security to connect with somebody to transition. And so that's why I think we all should be cognizant of that there are people being preyed upon that need that safety and security because I've been horrified. I've been in law enforcement 30 years. And the things that I've seen, it's shocking and it's wrong. And that's why when the sheriff gave us this directive and he told me, you follow every single step of your team's mission. Do not cut corners, be very thorough, and do it right. And that's what we're doing. And so in doing so, we have heard horrific stories about people being preyed upon. We've also seen some pretty cool stories with people taking a chance at getting sober. We're very thankful to partner with Jason Schneidman from the Men's Groomers Foundation. He's a local Venice guy who's amazing. He's walked the road of travels. He's walked a road that's been disturbing. He was homeless. He was addicted. And now he's a leader. And he's right in your community. And so when we talked to him, can you help us? He said, sure, I will. I'll do anything to help somebody transition out of homelessness. So we're thankful for those collaborations. I think to date he's done 65 haircuts. He brought in a whole cadre of people last week to help someone improve. Because what we found is not too many people have had a deputy sheriff walk them to get a haircut, but it's impactful. And so what happens, and the psychologists that do our training said, it's pretty impactful when someone gets a shower, a haircut, now they're clean and they have a new discussion. It's like a cleansing, a new discussion with an outreach worker that we've been told they didn't want to talk to them because they were a lady and they didn't smell good. And so once they got clean, they were more receptive. And so being innovative and bold is the host model. And that's why when the sheriff told us we were going to Venice, I still can't believe I'm there, but we need to be there. And it works. Another thing that we found is right now while I'm standing here is we found that we've been talking to a gentleman at Venice Beach who's actually a missing person since 2019 from the United Kingdom. And in the missing person report from the United Kingdom, it says that this gentleman's autistic and extremely vulnerable. Well, while I'm standing here, he's sitting with my deputies at Venice Beach. And so we're working with Interpol to connect him with the family. We haven't connected him yet, but I think I'm leaving here and going straight there as the team works on that. But I'm here to tell you he's one of 4 already we know about today. And so we're working with Ron Hooks from West Coast Care, who is amazing. And he's working with them to try to get on Facebook and Interpol and just whatever the thing is. But most people couldn't do this. Law enforcement has the ability to go through these things and make connections that other outreach members can't. And so we reach out to the St. Joseph Center and to PATH. We've worked with them on many projects throughout the county, and we will support them here. Because the sheriff was also clear to me, is do not undermine anything going on there. And then he's kind of like, well, I know we don't, but I'll make sure to remind you. We don't. And if we were somewhere and an outreach worker's connecting and they don't want our presence, we're okay to stand back. But we do work collaboratively. And so for the people in Venice that are down there supporting, we want to be part of the solution. And we will provide that safety and security so people can thrive and transition. So I'll close with this. One other thing we found in this assessment is there is a significant population, what we call nomadic travelers. And the sheriff had a brief thing on this thing there about, the guy told me he jumped on a train from Kentucky just because he could. And he's like, I don't have anything. Well, what's not shown there is he opens his wallet and he has more money than I do. Credit cards, and he says, I'm fine, I don't need anything. And we're hearing that story repeat itself over and over and over. And what they're saying is that there's no rules here. And so that has to change. We need a civil society to support that environment for everyone else. I didn't grow up in California, and I can tell you Venice Beach was a treasure, but I wouldn't take my family there. And that's big. And so the other part that we found in the assessment were there are people that we're calling them dual residents. They actually have a shelter bed, and their personal belongings are inside, but they're also allowed to maintain a duplicate residence outside on the boardwalk. I've never seen that anywhere in the county. And so when we address the nomadic travelers and these that have dual residency, you're looking at 30 to 40% of this situation is done. And then we have the vulnerable population. And I know I said I'll close, so I'll finish with this. The mental health crisis is big there. And our mental health professionals that have been down there are amazing. We've actually had people in crisis walk up to us and fall at my feet at the car because they saw the guardian effect, they knew they would get help. Within 2 minutes of us being in Venice, that happened and someone was then taken for treatment. And so the host team's positive mission will continue. I didn't forecast this, but here we are. And so I would like to introduce Bob Carlson, who's a local business owner in Venice. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Bob Carlson, and I own a skateboard and snowboard brand founded in Venice and run in Venice for the last 25 years. I'm not a political person. I'm not really that civic-minded. I think the last time, other than supporting the guys that got the Venice skateboard park built, the last time I did anything civically minded or political was volunteering for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. It's taken a lot to get me off the fence. I think what motivates me is the health and safety of my staff, a young staff that is under threat. And I've got some pretty stark examples of that. My business was founded to make sustainable snowboards and skateboards and the related gear. Really built on the surf, skate, design, environmental heritage of Venice, the culture of Venice, the heritage of Venice. I love Venice. It has been my home for 30 years. In the last few years, I have watched as a massive influx of homeless people have come into Venice and created a really incredibly unsafe situation for the residents and the visitors. Almost daily, we deal with violent mental illness, usually exacerbated by serious drug-filled aggression and the ever-present threat of weapons. It really creates daily interactions that could easily end in death or injury. In recent memory, on our property, or very much adjacent to our property, our building has been shot. We've had 2 arson fires that almost burned the building down both times. 8 people were sent to the hospital by a psychopath with a baseball bat. A woman was raped and just about beaten to death. Another woman was attacked, carried off the beach, and has now been missing for months. Our store has been broken into multiple times, causing thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage and stolen goods. Our employees and customers are constantly menaced, including a recent attack with a hypodermic needle. I've personally been attacked. You know, a few years ago, I finally had to hire a full-time security guard. I sell snowboards and skateboards around the world. I don't know another skateboard shop anywhere in the world that has full-time security. Imagine that. 2 weeks ago, our security guard, Tariq T.L.E., was violently attacked. A homeless gentleman sat down in our back parking lot with a full bottle of vodka and started drinking. We later learned that he was most likely high on meth. When T asked him to leave and told him that he couldn't drink on the property, he got up, started hitting T with the bottle, which eventually broke. He picked up that broken bottleneck and started viciously stabbing T multiple times across all parts of his body. He stabbed him multiple times in the head, tearing out pieces of his scalp. Sorry, this is tough. These are people who work for me and I feel responsible for. He tore open his wrist and sliced his finger to the bone and cut him in several other places across his arms and torso. T managed to subdue the attacker just long enough to step away, blood pouring from all parts of his body. The attacker realized a crowd had gathered and he ran off. T was so badly wounded that he almost bled out there in our parking lot. My staff was able to staunch the bleeding long enough for the paramedics to get there, while other members of my staff followed the attacker for the hour it took the LAPD to arrive. The aftermath of the attack was like nothing any of us had ever seen. T's a big guy, and his blood spray covered half of our parking lot. It was so traumatic that I had to offer counseling to my staff. A 12-year-old boy witnessed the whole thing. That evening at the hospital, the doctor told me that 2 vital arteries were barely missed, and T is incredibly lucky to be alive. He spent the last 2 weeks in the hospital, lost a finger to that infection, and will be scarred for the rest of his life, both emotionally and physically. Today in Venice, we are completely on our own. You don't realize how much you need the police until they're not there, until they're prevented from doing their job. We had to deal with an attempted manslaughter on our own. T. Daly stands between us, and between the rest of our staff and this insanity, this inhumane situation. Most days he can de-escalate it and prevent this type of a situation from happening. 2 weeks ago, he wasn't able to do that. If any other of my staff had had that interaction, they would be dead. Put yourself in my shoes. We don't blame the police. They've been prevented from doing their job. Thank God the sheriff is willing to intervene. Thank God this department is willing to bring some sanity back to our home. Sheriff is getting a bad rap, and lives are at stake. I hope that people will take a closer look at what we're dealing with in Venice. I'm a skateboarder. Not every one of my interactions has been perfect with the police in my life. It takes a lot for me to stand up here and give that man my thanks very publicly, but that's what I'm here to do. The people of Venice are scared and walk around in fear of being attacked. Our tourists are gone. Our restaurants, our businesses are struggling. And one of the cultural arts community of Los Angeles is being decimated. And something has to be done about it. And the sheriffs are doing something about it. And I can tell you that the vast, vast majority of people in Venice are so thankful for their intervention. We're going to bring up Kai, who is a friend of mine from Venice and another longtime resident.
Hi, I'm Kai Lunn. I live in Venice. I've been there for a year, coming from Santa Monica for over 20 years.
Do you mind spelling your name so we can...
Yes, C-H-I-E. Lunn, L-U-N-N. Thank you. So when I came to Venice, after being in Santa Monica, I've always been an advocate for helping people, and I'm a teacher as well and a mom. So it's always been natural for me to help better, especially children. And that's what brings me here today. I want to speak for the people who I feel like are the most vulnerable of our society, which is the children and the seniors of Venice. When I came there and we purchased our home and this encampment grew, my children were front row and center to all the things that we've seen here on this screen, the things that all of you guys who live in LA see every day when we drive by. And the impact that it has left on my family, the therapy for my 7-year-old daughter, the fear from my son, my neighbors. This last year, I've gotten to know so many family members who are deeply struggling. And so when we talk about the boardwalk, we're not just talking about businesses, we're talking about schools. The school I teach at, that's our classroom. When we talk about Alvera Street, when we talk about the Flower District, all these areas are areas that we consider our classrooms for us. These are places that we take our kids to learn. The beach as well for classes. And these are classrooms that have been shut down, but not by COVID. By fear, by trauma, by violence. And one of the things that, for me, being able to speak about this is that it leaves the parents in fear. I see that so many parents are afraid to speak up. So many seniors don't have the voice or the tools to come out of their homes and speak up. And I just want to be a voice for them. And for me, also seeing that they are suffering and seeing that with what's going on, that we are having locations where these things shouldn't be happening beyond just the boardwalk. We talk about the boardwalk, but on public streets, I have Flower, which is a residential street where a 4-year-old lives, can't come out in her front yard. We have Electric Way, where I know a 13-year-old who can't even check her mail because of the encampment that's right outside her door. These things are deeply impacting so many people. And when I read the newsletter, like a lot of people read from Mike Bonning yesterday, saying that he's ready to start helping. While we're excited about that, we also look at it as a time that he can also apologize, he can step up, he can support the sheriff and the efforts that they're doing, but he can also lend that support that we've been begging for so long to so many other family members and locations, like the RV that's sitting outside our school with a felon inside it and children are playing behind it. Being that I've seen 3 RVs blow up next to a children's playground in Venice, I don't understand how these things have been okay for so long, and now that we're getting attention on the boardwalk, that, it's all of a sudden like that's the big thing, and he can go and help the boardwalk. We welcome his help. We've been wanting his help. We've been begging for it. We just would like to see that help extended more on a public basis to support all of us, treat us all equally, and we have not been seeing that. And for what they're doing out there with the host, it's amazing, the support that they're giving. It gives me hope that I can then start bringing my children back out there, because these situations are deeply traumatic. We have another person who we work with who's another doer in our city. One of the guys who she's been repeatedly calling the police for, he just OD'd in her backyard outside of her children's home off of their balcony. We've had, people who, I just heard this morning, someone breaking into their home, trying to break into their home. This is endless situations. And when we talk about the people who really can't help themselves and who are afraid to speak up, who aren't walking their children, aren't walking the streets, they have a voice too. And it's not that they don't care, it's that they're so busy trying to protect their families and they don't have a choice. Some people say, well, take them to Disneyland. Disneyland is expensive. These locations are expensive. The beach has been a place where many students have been able to use for tons of years and generations to educate, to build their families, to connect. Even when the trains came into Santa Monica, we were so excited. We were taking our students to the Science Center on a train. We had to stop that. We can't take them on the buses. These are public facilities that we cannot use. Families cannot use, schools cannot use, students cannot use. And as a teacher, it leaves us very vulnerable when we're out here in these public spaces with our students and you have 2 teachers with, rather it's 12 kids or more if you're in a public school. It's leaving so many of us in a position of trauma, of danger. So many parents are dealing with medical bills upon bills for mental health. Some aren't even aware of the suffering of their children. And then we also have to talk about the fact of normalizing trauma to children. I come from a household as a child that had a lot of abuse in my household. When the police were called, that was a night that we could comfortably go to sleep when my stepfather was taken away. And so for me, I'm seeing these families that are going through trauma that didn't sign up for it, as I did not sign up for it. I planned on having my kids raised in a household without violence. And now it's right there at our doorsteps, and we cannot have this anymore. And I appreciate what they're doing. I hope that they get more support. I think that it's there. I think that more families need to set up cameras, just to say, and record, because I think that that's how we get people to be aware of what's happening and not be afraid to unite, not be afraid to use your public spaces, even though they are violated and being taken over. But the more we hide from our public spaces, the more we relinquish our power. And so the more we stand up for what we know we deserve, which is safe environments, clean environments, needles not on the beach, things of this nature, the more we make people know that we have a voice and that we're willing to, get out there and support good doing. And so that's all I have to say today. But I really thank everyone who's doing great work, and especially the sheriff today. Thank you.
In closing, we sent a letter at 10 o'clock to the Board of Supervisors. We're requesting they declare LA County local state of emergency regarding the homeless. Enough's enough. We need to kick this into high gear. Now, that was just a year 1 year difference, and that's what we have now. And I'm going to paraphrase the movie Shawshank Redemption. You can get busy living or you can get busy dying. With the homeless, you have two choices. If you're an elected official, you can get busy helping or you can get busy hindering. It's your choice. Let's move one slide. This is what I want to hear from every single member of the Board of Supervisors, every single councilman, the mayor himself. How can I help? Don't tell me what you can't do or what your authorities or jurisdiction are. No, tell me how can I help. I'm going to be sending another letter, we're crafting it right now, to Mayor Garcetti, telling him to unhandcuff the LAPD. Let them do their job. I want to see the boardwalk, the entire community, blocks inland, with people in blue, doing their job. If they're not there, we will be there. We're not going to abandon you, Bob or Kai. We will definitely make sure that the boardwalk is in a safe and secure place for families, for residents, for tourists, for everybody. And we'll make sure that the homeless, the unhoused that are there get the help they need and they get them on their way. We're going to have you talked about the protocol that the host team uses, but primarily we're dealing with four steps, so to speak, or options that we're going to use to clear every encampment in LA County. The first one obviously is with the host team and is getting the shelter wherever it comes from, Operation Home Key, Room Key, whatever it is, or any of the nonprofits that they have available bed space. Congregate living facilities, it doesn't matter. That is option A. Option B, or the second step, is safe campgrounds and safe parking areas for the RVs. Yes, the RVs need to be moved to a place where they're not harming the community. Plan C, or the third step, is if people don't want to go with one or two, they need to leave. It's time to move. You do not have a right to negatively impact the community and claim public space as your own. You just don't have that. In the fourth option, we will use the rule of law. We will enforce the laws that exist already. We don't expect to get to the fourth option because I think most people will be done with the first three. And so that's, I'll leave it at that. Does anybody have any questions?
What would a state of emergency allow you to do? In other words, why are you requesting in it? What would it allow? Do you get special powers or resources?
Well, we have the authority. It's just a question of resources. I mean, I have a poor Judge Carter pulling his hair trying to make sense out of the bureaucracy of the city and county. The solutions are pretty straightforward and simple, and it involves regulating public space, matching the needs with the resources, and get everybody rowing in the same direction. But right now we have competition of resources. Everybody's trying to, virtue signaling or take credit. But imagine how much things we get accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit. We just want to get the job done. Yes, ma'am.
So could you answer my question, though? What would an state of emergency actually?
Well, one, it allows us to apply for FEMA funds, of course, because remember, this is a national problem that we're the recipient of a national problem. But why should the local taxpayer bear the brunt of a national problem? So it is very appropriate to apply for FEMA funding and to go directly to the people that are going to provide the resources, be it law enforcement on our end, the LASA on the service provider end in terms of housing, establishing safe campgrounds, safe parking areas with all of the support services and the wraparound services that are needed with that in terms of trash removal and all that. There's a lot that we have to do. It's not can we, that we have to do it. Yes.
Chief Moore said in an interview this morning that LAPD is enforcing some of the bans on camping at the beach, but they're only issuing tickets because LA Sanitation won't come and clear the tents. So his stance is that it's a waste of time taking people to jail on zero bail if they're just going to come back.
Well, this is where...
Wait, so my question is, are you working with LA Sanitation? Is that going to be part of your enforcement strategy?
Well, part of our strategy is to get Mayor Garcetti to do his job, which means tell sanitation to get the job done. I mean, this is something it's embarrassingly simple. And I'm going to take it a step further. The 101 corridor from downtown to Universal Studios, which looks like an open-air garbage dump. I put the architects there. I left Governor Newsom out of the equation, but they have the right of way. Caltrans and the CHP has a responsibility over the freeway corridors. They need to also be part of the solution, not part of the problem. That deliberate indifference or, well, we're not going to do anything, that doesn't work anymore. They gotta get to work as well.
So you're not communicating with LA Sand? That would be the mayor's job to communicate?
It's the mayor's job. It's the mayor's job to do his job. Remember, we have 3 branches of government. We got the executive, legislative, and the judicial. What we found during our walks in Venice and our interface with city government is I got 15 mini mayors and 15 wannabe chiefs of police in 15 different directions that LAPD is being pulled around. No wonder things aren't happening. We have to have a clear authority. The mayor appoints the chief of police, right? He is the one that has to provide direction to the chief of police so they can execute those orders without the interference of each councilman trying to tweak things to his need. It doesn't work that way.
Just to kind of follow up on Kate's question, though, when it comes to working with these groups, you say, how can I help? But you also take them to the mat in a pretty aggressive way here, which seems to create roadblocks to any sort of cooperation between the Sheriff's Department, the Board of Supervisors, the City Council, and the Mayor. Why take this approach instead of, I don't know, maybe something a little bit more diplomatic?
Well, we've had 10 years of diplomacy. How's that worked out for you? There's a time when you have to call people out and just cut through the BS. This is that moment in history for the entire region where we say enough is enough. Let's get the job done. Pete.
Question for you. I mean, you want to take decisive action, but you've got some legal and legislative roadblocks that are in the way that seem to be a problem. One is the Sundance decision. No one has ever decided to challenge that, which basically, if you want to reduce it down to the simple thing, you can't arrest people for homelessness, and homelessness is not a crime, at least in the words of the federal judge. You can't do that. That decision's been there for more than a decade. The other one is Lanterman-Petrus, which deals with the concept of how do you, if these people, I'm not going to move and you can't move me, and you can't do anything. Well, by being here, what you're saying is you want to repeal Lanterman-Petrus and saying, if you're going to be a problem, we are going to involuntary commit you.
Well, there is a movement in Sacramento where the Lanterman-Petrus Act, that what constitutes gravely disabled, really needs to be revised. And that falls upon our assembly, our state senators, to figure out what that constitutes. Because right now, when they dismantle the entire system of mental hospitals from back in the 60s and 70s, the promise was that there was going to be community-based alternatives to that, which never occurred. That was the birth of the homeless right there, that magical moment.
Follow-up question on that, but again, I'm faulting not a governor, who later became the president to that, and the legislature. Given the fact that you've got, at least according to Gavin Newsom's own figures, $75 billion in a surplus here, that would be enough to set up the infrastructure for a state mental health care program and a state mental health care system.
Yeah, 76 billion, not million.
I know, 76 billion.
Yes.
We talked to Governor Hairgel and other people about that, about the possibility of writing it out.
You know what? The resources are there. Particularly this moment in history, the resources are there. In terms of, for example, Sundance, we have the Boise decision, which is the one that's kind of binding. If you have an alternative place to put someone, be it a roof over their head, a bed, yes, we can force people to move. No one has a pink slip on any piece of real estate anywhere in the county. And that's what we have to start enforcing. We can enforce laws. We just have all the options available for the person that will be moved.
FEMA would give you those options, you think?
How's that?
FEMA would give you those options?
They'll give us some of the resources for those options. And remember, no one has, when we don't regulate public space, really bad things happen, as we're witnessing right now. Horribly bad things happen. So we have to start regulating. We have to reclaim that public space and regulate it. Then you're going to see that civil society that we do have can start retaking form again, and all of a sudden some normalcy can be reestablished, and people that need the help get the help. Yes?
Sheriff, I have a question about the July 4th deadline. I spoke to an unhoused person yesterday living in a tent who says he has accepted services. He's on the wait list for a hotel voucher, but he doesn't know when it's going to come. The service provider has told him to stay put so they can find him once it opens. So if that doesn't happen before July 4th, will those people be told to leave the beach, even if they've accepted services that aren't there yet?
Well, that is something that LASA and their bureaucracy and the bureaucracy of between the city and the county, they need to basically pull apart. And that is a fundamental problem right there, because Operation Room Key, they were shoveling money at all these motels, but they were sitting half empty. But they were being paid for every single bed space. While they didn't have to take anything, they didn't have to have any expense for it. So we paid for a capacity that was not used. But then the follow-up was, and we'll go to Bonin's plan that basically has no end to it, because they're not going to move anybody who doesn't want to go. So that destroys the entire plan right there. We have to reach to a point where you have an option, you have a place to go, now it's time to leave.
So what's your message for like this gentleman who says, I'm down for services, but it's not there?
We will.
Ma'am, if you give me his name, we'll have him placed by this evening.
That's how simple as it is.
Lieutenant Dietrich, on that point, or maybe the sheriff, you know, there's a lot of concern that you're going to put them somewhere. It's likely going to be temporary shelter. And there's a lot of concern that there's no permanent housing for them. So what you're really doing is you're just shuffling them around. In other words, they're get out of the temporary shelter, you know, either be back in Venice or somewhere else in the city or the county.
Can you back up a slide to the population count? When you don't do that, the only thing you will be guaranteed is there'll be 20,000 more people the next year. We have to alter the equation on the ground right now. Once we start altering the equation, people are going to find their niche, they're going to find the help they need, or they're going to move on to a place that doesn't regulate public space, which is fine. That'll be a problem of another county, another state, but not LA County.
What proof do you have that that works?
Well, I can prove what doesn't work. In fact, I got a lot of evidence of that. We've been talking about that all morning. All right?
Sir, when you said what proof do you have that doesn't work, what were you saying?
Well, he was saying, hey, you shuffle them up, you get them in temporary housing. Who cares if they get out, you know, in 30, 60, 90 days, they'll be somewhere else. And
Well, he didn't
correct me if I'm
say
wrong.
who cares what happens,
Yeah,
but
correct me if-
I think the point you're making is what happened during the pandemic was the congregate
Lieutenant,
shelters.
can you step to the mic, please?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. But to be clear, that's not what the sheriff said. What he said was there is some shuffling goes on, but let's go back to the beginning of the pandemic. At the original point, the congregate shelters needed to be decreased and decompressed. So those people in those congregate shelters throughout the city and the county were placed into Project Room Key hotels and motels. And I don't think that was called shuffling. What we're talking about is taking someone from a public space where it is making life intolerable for the rest of the community and placing them somewhere. Now, in that placement, the service providers who do a tremendous job, if they use their case management, now someone's sleeping with a roof over their head, they've had a warm shower, they've had a warm meal, it then leads to a conducive environment where they engage in services that quite often they don't when you talk to them out in the environment. It's a different conversation. And so I disagree with this shuffling. That's not what's happening. It's placing someone in a better place, because what we see on the beach today is human deterioration. Because I was asked yesterday by someone who was homeless, do you see anybody getting better here since you've been here? No. It's human deterioration and misery. And so our efforts at the sheriff's direction was to stop that. And it's one person at a time, but I think it's disgraceful to say that's shuffling.
Thank you for the explanation.
How many people have you contacted since you've been in Venice? How long has that been? How many people have moved into a space? How many people have you located? How many arrests have you made? And also, did you say that there were 4 people you found that were listed as?
Well, I'll start with your last question. There have been zero arrests made by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department since we've been deployed there. I can't recall the exact date, but I believe today is our 7th outreach mission on the boardwalk. We're looking at our data. We were up late last night because we're trying to connect with Interpol rather than missing person from today. But I believe we're in the area around 140 contacts and by tomorrow we'll have our list concluded. And we do believe the list that's being worked upon by the outreach providers there is about 150 people. And so obviously the numbers change daily, but our number right now is around 140. We'll have an accurate number to the sheriff by Thursday night, and then we can break it down then. But mine is an approximation because we're still collecting our data and bringing our teams together for that collection. We have placed 15 people, and let's be clear about what that is. The sheriff's department, we don't have apartment buildings. What we do is we connect. We're the collaborative bridge between safety, security, someone who's vulnerable that needs help. We connect them with the service providers, and we treasure them, that then place them. We've also had 4 people reunified with their families through West Coast Care, through Ron Hooks. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. She has a question.
Just a few blocks away from the boardwalk is actually Mike Bonnet's bridge housing, supported housing. Are any of these homeless people being connected to that shelter? And once the sweep is over on July 4th, will you be moving from the boardwalk to address the other areas, like on Rose Ave?
Well, that's a great question, but I think that's a mischaracterization. There is no sweep. It's an assessment. And so, and I didn't finish the protocol earlier, but it's identification, assessment, outreach, posting, cleanup. From what I heard, we may not get to the last pieces because it's happening. But assessment and outreach, those are not sweeps. Those are personal human connections, one at a time. And so as we go with this, and I apologize for the second part of your question, if you could restate that.
Yeah, I was asking if any of them are going to be connected to.
Oh, thank you. So, well, I do want to be extremely accurate with our information. I know the report I looked at last night where 42 people have been walked from the boardwalk with deputies to the service tents through the service providers there on Rose Avenue in the parking lot that we have taken. And I think there was some pictures yesterday of a deputy with a wagon pulling the person's property over to the tents because the person wanted to talk but didn't want to leave their things behind. So we've taken 42 people there, but I can't tell you those outcomes. But what I do is say that we were that collaborative bridge with safety and security to help them try to get services. But I don't know the resolution because we never get that information back. All we care about is trying to get them there.
And will you be addressing the other homeless pockets in Venice once you guys have are done doing the work on the boardwalk?
Well, obviously, we take our direction from the sheriff, and the sheriff has directed me to go to the boardwalk. But I can assure you, prior to us deploying there, we did a thorough assessment and documented the interior of Venice, because quite often, and we've seen this throughout our efforts, is municipalities, and there's a push and pull, don't move people here. The host team does not move people. However, we also recognize it's a free country, and people can go where they do. So we discourage anyone from leaving the boardwalk to go to the interior of Venice, but we can't stop it. And there's outreach that's been going on. I heard someone say earlier for a long time. I'm not sure if people were moved then, but we do not purposely move anyone.
Just one more follow-up on the sanitation question. Do you feel like you need LA Sand to clear the tents if people are getting booked or misdemeanors for sleeping on the beach at a certain point, or will you guys just take care of the trash yourself?
Well, there's a protocol that the LAPD is following, and this is all comes from the mayor's office and with the LA Sanitation Department. Some of it is not very realistic and allows for the accumulation of things, and the county side, we don't have that problem. And I think ours is a lot more effective in that regard. If you want to explain.
And this is a unique situation in the sense that we also have other people who are coming out with resources offering to do these things. And so in working with the Parks Department and the people down there, there's outside people that are saying we will help support this, because the host model is, and without getting into that broadly, it's very humane, it's very dignified, and it's very judicious. Every court case that was spoken about here and all the court cases relating to homelessness, our team are experts in those. And we have never had a violation of that law because we have strict adherence to the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment. And I think there might be a slide coming up here in a moment. So there's some pretty cool things going on in the boardwalk right now. But to that thing, we will work collaboratively with everyone. that's down there. Everybody.
Something about the sanitation question too. I just wanted to say about the sanitation question that in Venice, the community works hard to clean up our streets. We have so many groups together that are happy to go out and clean up. Just as a Father's Day, my husband and my son went out and cleaned up next to Smart and Final where an RV or a car or something blew up and exploded. They came and took the vehicle away, but left all the glass, all the debris right there. 2 seniors living across the street and an RV still sitting in that parking lot were present. The city, whoever came and took the vehicle and object or whatever it was that blew up. So for us, my husband and son went out there and bagged up 6 bags on Father's Day of debris left over the street. We are happy to clean up our city as constituents, as people. We get out there every day and take part in that. So we would support the sheriff and the team and everyone with cleaning if that's a small part of the bigger problem, because we're there to help. And he has great connections for that.
Because people are saying that's what's creating a revolving door with their enforcement, is that people can just come back to the tent.
Well, without getting too deep in the weeds, there's policy decisions by organizations that affect things differently. Our policies are different. And so, and as you saw firsthand, is our policies differ from those. And so we don't have that concern from the host team. But one thing I did want to see, this is kind of, I've never ever seen this before. So Sheriff, a gentleman, and I want to thank the Bell Shelter, the Salvation Bell Shelter is amazing. And Andy Bales from the Union Rescue Mission, and they have stepped up incredibly. But Sheriff, there's a tweet that just got put up by a gentleman that's saying, "Thank you again, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, for taking me to Venice, for taking me from Venice to the Bell Shelter. I took my first skateboard ride today after leaving quarantine. I cut the road." Oh, where's Bob? There's your guy. "I cut the road, and the thieves of Venice tried once to steal my longboard, but they didn't get it." So here's someone who is homeless on the boardwalk, which I've never seen this, tweet thanking us for placing them. And so the Host Project is a humanitarian mission. And as long as the sheriff directs us to be there, we'll be there.
Sheriff, could we ask one last question about Gaston?
And yeah, I would like to ask a question about the White House announcement about the, shifting gears if we could.
Two more questions, one and one. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know how much you were able to look at the White House's upcoming announcement, the anti-gun violence effort, but wanted to see if you could respond to there's multiple elements of it. One of it is to stop illegal trafficking of guns across state lines. There's a community element, there's a backing summer program. So happy to talk to you on the side, or if you could just generally talk about it now, that would be great too.
Well, I do support any effort we can to get rid of the ghost gun, entire industry of ghost guns, the manufacture and the sale of ghost guns, because all that does is allow people that are prohibited persons from bypassing all the registration requirements. That is a big threat for everyone's safety. So if they're addressing that, I believe the White House has initiated that because they have obviously control over the ATF and the regulatory side of it. And wish them well. They need to keep working along those ends. But obviously, I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, and we're not going to be grabbing anybody's gun unless you're a prohibited person when they have no business owning a gun to begin with. But we'll take a look at the measure.
And just more broadly, how do you think the federal government can help local law enforcement in terms of gun violence and preventing gun violence?
Well, if you do national legislation, it helps, because when you do state level legislation, it's easily defeated by just crossing a state line. For example, the Gilroy Massacre, the Garlic Festival, the guy went to Nevada, purchased his assault weapon, went to California, and he shot everybody up. So it didn't really matter what the California law was. So that's the limitation of state laws.
Thank you. And if it's okay, I would like to follow up with you after this.
Sure. Okay.
So, DA Gascon has provided, I guess, several thousand cases in which your deputies are involved, either witnesses or made the arrest or whatever, and has asked you to identify any of the deputies and detectives who might have Brady problems, might have problems, potential problems with credibility. Do you intend to provide him those names?
We're going to be, the Supreme Court decision was very clear on this. like most law enforcement agencies, we're not going to be compiling lists, so to speak, but on every single case that there's a question about the credibility of the witness, we will definitely alert the district attorney's office and comply with our Brady obligation.
So are you gonna go down his spreadsheet and check your files?
As our cases come to him, we will provide it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Right, thank you. That concludes today. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.